caught my boyfriend cheating while he was working through his trauma. After admitting he felt lost, he asks for a second chance. Can I trust him again after discovering his hidden secrets? My 30-year-old boyfriend, who is 25, cheated on me and is asking for a second chance. Trigger warning: mentions of childhood trauma not detailed, mentions of mental health issues, homelessness, and infidelity. Please remember that we are real individuals and both of us have made mistakes. We carry complex childhood trauma, and not everything can be detailed in this post. I hope I am posting in the correct subreddit. Please feel free to ask any additional questions. I am happy to respond. Summary: 3 days ago, I discovered a hidden folder on my boyfriend's device. It contained images of another girl from December 2023 to January 2024. Most of the images were of him with her, kissing, along with screenshots of their conversations, some intimate photographs, all dated, which is relevant to the timeline explained below. There were also many pictures of him with his ex-girlfriend. Background: I met him in October 2021, and he professed his love for me just a month later. In November 2021, he experienced severe trauma related to his mother, resulting in him leaving home and becoming essentially homeless for 1 to 2 weeks, staying in various hotels and Airbnbs until he found a room to rent. During this time, I stood by him, paid for hotels when I could, brought him food, and provided him with clean socks when he couldn't do laundry. I had my own family trauma and significant childhood issues to contend with, which made me fearful of confrontation. Nevertheless, I accompanied him to his mother's house to talk or to collect his belongings. While he was renting this room, I stayed with him as he fell into deep depression and struggled to see a future. However, during this time, he pushed me to address my family trauma and expose the person responsible for my suffering, assuring me that he would always support me. We drank a lot together and argued frequently. I questioned the authenticity of his love, possibly due to self-sabotage, I don't know, and I had a problematic relationship with alcohol at that time. He often argued with me, and I felt that every time I returned home, he would either argue or become depressed, believing that I was the source of our problems, acting loud and combative while intoxicated. His 3-year-old family dog passed away during this period, and his relationships with his mother and sister deteriorated further, with other family members alienating him and neglecting to ask for his side of the story or to check on his well-being. In June 2022, we moved into a flat together and acquired a large dog, which he stated was intended to protect me in his absence. Regarding my family issues, we discovered that the person who harmed my sister had a history of similar behavior, prompting me to expose him. My boyfriend significantly assisted me with this, standing by my side even when my family did not believe me, and took a year to remove this person for his reprehensible actions. My boyfriend claimed to have absorbed my trauma, which pushed him deeper into his own dark thoughts, but I failed to support his emotional struggles. In December 2023, he broke up with me, explaining that he felt incapable of affection. He could not even kiss me normally, struggled to hug me, and attributed his feelings to everything he faced with his mother and the emotional baggage I brought into the relationship. He claimed he did not feel my love, felt unsupported, and ultimately felt alone. Despite our breakup, he remained in the flat to help with the moving out process rather than leave me in chaos. Just days after our breakup, he started seeing another woman, kissed her, and made grand gestures toward her. However, complications arose as her mother did not approve of their relationship due to differing religions. He became intimate with her and, on my birthday, engaged with me affectionately, spending the day with me, my sister, and my family. Days later, he was seeing this other girl again, telling her he loved her while messaging me about hanging out with a friend. We spent Christmas together, and he surprised me with a kitten, which confused me since he had just broken up with me. He continued to see this girl until late January 2024. The messages show that she ended the relationship, but she continued to call him, and he ultimately broke it off. I contacted her, and she mentioned that they met up once more in June, coincidentally, when I was out of the country, but he insists she is lying. We continued living together, even sharing a bed again, essentially acting like a couple without officially discussing our status. I planned a lovely surprise for his birthday, and he bought me flowers and balloons for Valentine's Day, indicating that we were back together despite not stating it. At the end of February or beginning of March 2024, we attended an event where he first met the second girl. She was also there when he visited a friend's house to help prepare for the event. From the messages, I learned that he kissed this girl, visited her after seeing this friend, who lives nearby, and went to see her after work, all while returning to me and claiming he was meeting this friend. We occasionally drank together and enjoyed ourselves, but at the end of May 2023, we had a significant intoxicated argument. I felt that he was very controlling, preventing me from expressing myself, and whenever I tried to contradict him, he would become angry, telling me to stop talking because he was getting angry. He has anger issues stemming from his childhood. Eventually, I lashed out after pushing everything down for too long. I don't recall most of the argument, but he claims it started when he was attempting to console me about my past trauma, and I responded by saying he could not understand and ultimately pushed him away. Feeling unheard, I involved his friend, who did not believe me and supported him. I also reached out to my sister, who took me back to my family home to help me calm down as I was still very drunk and emotional. He stated that this incident caused him a lot of trauma and led to mistrust toward me, making him wary of potential future outbursts from me. In June 2024, I traveled abroad, and this was when he met the first girl again, although he claims he did not see her. In August 2024, I found a note in his wallet that he had written to this girl at work to ask for her number. I confronted him, and he maintained that he only spoke to her when we were broken up. When I requested to see proof on his phone, he refused. I asked him to clarify some questionable actions from early 2024, such as claims of meeting a friend without providing a name and keeping a mug with hearts in his car, which he later attempted to give me but dodged questions about its origins. He consistently denied everything, telling me to drop the subject, insisting it all took place during our breakup. There were similar arguments in September 2024 regarding the same girl, as well as in December 2024, along with smaller disputes because I did not trust him and sensed he was hiding things. I perceived narcissistic traits in him, but I lacked definitive proof. On my 30th birthday, we had an extensive 6 to 7 hour argument, initially stemming from something trivial, but eventually focusing on the ever-present lack of trust. In a moment of frustration, I tore up our pictures, which made him explode with anger, resulting in him hurting me. He claims he doesn't remember this incident because he loses all recollection when he gets angry. After this argument, we discussed his childhood trauma and how he feels isolated and unable to cope with life. He agreed to share his location with me, post about me on his social media, and remove female contacts from his Instagram to reassure me. He vowed to work on his anger issues and never again resort to physical harm. Since that time, I have noticed a change in him. He has started giving me flowers again, purchasing things I desire, bringing me food, cooking my favorite meals, and gradually attempting to be more affectionate with me, showing the tender love I seek. However, 3 days ago, I discovered all the photos he had kept in his hidden folder. I confronted him, took care of our pets, and left for my parents' house. My family, who had a relatively good relationship with him, is understandably very upset about the infidelity. When he returned home in the middle of work, he noticed this and left, providing an excuse to come to my parents' house. We spoke outside, and he persuaded me to return home to discuss things further. He has admitted to everything, stating he was in a very dark place and felt unable to show affection, which is why he broke up with me. Yet, he attempted to seek affection elsewhere to determine if I was the issue. He claimed he professed love to the other girl, but did not mean it, stating that he was simply trying to feel something. When he realized he was on the wrong path, he stopped and did not want to become the person he had been. He hid his actions from me and lied to avoid hurting my feelings, emphasizing that he was actively working on himself to confront his trauma regarding affection and trust. He insists he had forgotten about those photos, despite our previous arguments about him liking other women's inappropriate posts and retaining photos of past partners on social media. He has maintained that he has been faithful since then. He urged me not to allow his significant mistake to define him, highlighting that he has supported me when my family did not and helped me address my serious family issues. He sees himself as my pillar of support, improving my confidence and addressing my food struggles by allowing me to share my emotional burdens with him. He believes he has been trying to make our relationship work, asking me not to let his past mistakes ruin our present, suggesting couples therapy, and asserting that he cannot afford to lose me. He claims that my presence and that of one of his friends are his only reasons to keep going. I am unsure of what to do. Story 2. My friendship group turned on me after I called out one member's betrayal. I was abandoned when I needed support most, left with no place to live and alone in my pain. Was standing up for my friend worth losing everything? I met my group of friends through an online chat before attending university. We connected immediately, and I particularly clicked with one girl, let us call her Ally. She was kind, she understood me, and we formed a bond over shared experiences. It felt as if I had finally found people who genuinely cared about me, and I cared just as intensely in return. However, everything began to change once university started. A male member of our group, Eric, began dating my flatmate. He gave her false hope, made her believe they had something substantial, and then abruptly told her he was not ready for a relationship. She was heartbroken, and her mental health deteriorated. He was aware of this. I realized he was not obligated to remain with her, but the way he handled it was cruel. She deserved honesty, not to be cast aside as if she meant nothing. Then, I discovered that Ally had gone behind everyone's back and started seeing him while he and my flatmate were still together. My flatmate had her suspicions, but I refused to believe it. I trusted Ally too much to think she could betray me like that, especially since she was the one comforting my flatmate through the entire ordeal. But then Ally and Eric officially announced their relationship. I confronted them not out of malice, but because it was unethical. They should have been honest. What made it worse was that they did not even attempt to be considerate of my flatmate's feelings. I suggested they keep their relationship discreet until they had informed her, as she would have to see them every day, kissing and behaving as if nothing had happened. But they refused. Instead, they adopted the victim mentality, downplaying her suffering and making excuses. The rest of the group agreed with my viewpoint, but Ally held a grudge against me for calling her out. And honestly, she deserved to be called out. How can you look someone in the eye, assure them that everything will be fine, knowing perfectly well that you are the reason they are hurting? Eventually, Ally and I apologized to each other, and I thought we had moved past the issue. However, she began to distance herself from me, and suddenly, my entire relationship with the group changed. She spent all her time with Eric, while I found myself on the outside. I attempted to discuss this with her and the rest of the group, believing that communication would help. It did not. Then, I went through something traumatic, something I do not feel comfortable sharing. I opened up to the group in search of support. Instead, they judged me. They claimed they were concerned, but behind my back, they criticized my coping mechanisms. Rather than discussing it directly with me, they analyzed my mental state, whispered about their inability to support me, and eventually told me outright to stop talking about it. They made it clear that I was too much for them. Consequently, I withdrew and became distant. Around this time, we began looking for houses. We found the perfect one, but it was more expensive than our current accommodation. Since they had already been expressing concerns about finances, I suggested we search for a more affordable option. They all insisted they could afford it, including Ally and Eric, who had been the most vocal about their financial difficulties. I asked them directly if they were certain. They assured me they were. 4 months later, out of the blue, Ally announced she could not afford it. Subsequently, Eric made the same statement. By this point, we had already signed the contract. I was furious. I reminded them that I had warned them multiple times, but it was to no avail. Now, we were left scrambling to find another place. After a stressful search, we found a new house under the terms of the previous contract. Before viewing it, we all agreed that room selection would be determined by first dibs. Ally and Eric also stated numerous times in the past that one of them would have no problem taking the smaller room since they would spend most of their time in each other's spaces anyway. No issues there. But this house actually contained one small room. The rest of us claimed the larger ones, leaving Ally with the small one. That evening, she requested to swap rooms with me. I told her no and explained why she and Eric would be sharing space most of the time anyway, while I needed a room for myself and also wanted to bring my piano. For context, she is a gamer and informed me that she requires space for a television and that I should place the piano in the tiny kitchen. The kitchen. I found this quite selfish, as she could do the same. However, instead of understanding her inability to get her way, she lashed out. She expressed that she had disliked me ever since I confronted her about what she did to my flatmate, that I had spoiled the beginning of her relationship. She insulted me, attacked my mental health, and then quickly apologized. I did not accept it. I told her I needed time and space. She claimed to understand. But seriously, who holds a grudge for that long, over something she did wrong? I had even apologized to her back then because I believed our friendship was significant, and all along, she was secretly resenting me. Then, the group decided we needed to hold a meeting. I entered thinking we would discuss how to move forward and mend things. Instead, they informed me that I needed to find somewhere else to live. None of them wanted me there. They did this knowing how late it was in the year, knowing I had nowhere else to go, knowing that all my other friends had already finalized their housing arrangements, knowing that my anxiety makes it challenging for me to live with strangers. I broke down. I pleaded with them to simply talk things through and work things out. They refused. They wanted me gone. It became painfully clear that Ally knew she could not secure the room fairly, so she went behind my back and turned everyone against me. And now she achieved her goal. She has the small room, but at what cost? Perhaps I am the problem. Maybe I should have remained silent, but I do not believe I was wrong for standing up for what was right. I thought these people were my friends. I thought they cared. Instead, they abandoned me at my lowest point. And after witnessing my tears, after observing my breakdown, they had the audacity to ask if I needed a hug. A hug. I have never cried so hard in my life. Story 3. I ended my friendship with Bug after witnessing their toxic behavior and false accusations about my new friend. Despite being best friends for years, the drama and accusations took a toll on my mental health. Was I wrong to walk away for my peace? I, a 19-year-old female, have been friends with this person, whom we will refer to as Bug, aged 18, for 4 years. During this time, I observed them go through a very toxic relationship, one that they recognized was harmful but chose to stay in regardless. My role was limited to being there for them, as there was not much else I could do. They were always kind to me, but had a troubling tendency to speak negatively about everyone else, blaming them or their mental disorders for all the issues in their life, while failing to take responsibility for their own mistakes or problems. This situation did not affect me significantly until I began making other friends, particularly a guy named Hunter. I was 17 then, and he was 16. Hunter was funny, treated everyone with respect, and was enjoyable to spend time with. However, Bug started telling me lies about Hunter in an attempt to make me stop being friends with him. The lies were far from believable. They claimed he had once tried to set them on fire because they were gay, that he bullied them at school, and that he tore up their books. When I questioned Hunter about these allegations, he denied everything. When I confronted Bug again, they claimed that a different person had bullied them, yet they had been texting me numerous terrible things about Hunter specifically, providing evidence that they were trying to implicate him. When I confronted Bug about this inconsistency, they began to cry, expressing that they simply did not want me to be friends with him. I still do not understand why, as they did not provide me with an answer. Fast forward a couple of years, and I had nearly forgotten the entire incident. Bug had ended their toxic relationship and started seeing a new guy. I did not have strong opinions about him aside from my concern that they met over Snapchat. I personally believed it was a poor choice, especially given that they had recently exited a relationship, and beginning a romantic connection with someone from the internet whom you have not met in person is generally inadvisable. Furthermore, at the time, he was just over 18 and Bug was just over 17. Regardless, Bug was infatuated with him, and to my knowledge, they were not being sexually intimate. He planned to visit them, and they thought it would be wonderful if we all hung out together, so they provided me with his phone number and asked me to get to know him better to facilitate a smoother dynamic among us. What struck me as odd was Bug's inconsistent portrayal of him, one moment praising his character and the next vilifying him over minor disagreements. Bug consistently refused to communicate directly with the person who hurt their feelings, choosing instead to confide in others. Unsure about their judgment of people, I decided to reach out to this new guy. He was aware that I did not fully trust him, and that I was contacting him specifically at Bug's request. Bug intended to use me as an excuse to stay overnight with him at a hotel, seeking my validation to convince their grandmother, with whom they lived. I expressed my concerns about this plan, but Bug insisted it was not my concern and that I should simply go along with it. I was uneasy about this, but felt powerless since neither of them heeded my warnings. They were about to become adults and assured me they would not engage in sexual activity. Eventually, I started talking to this guy, and he was genuinely nice. We shared several interests and had much in common, which helped me trust him a bit more. Everything seemed to be fine until one day he texted me requesting a conversation. Simultaneously, I wanted to talk to him as well because I noticed Bug had been uncommunicative about something that might have upset them. They had been short with me, neglecting my calls and texts, and behaving rudely overall. When he called me, he inquired if Bug had been acting strangely, to which I replied affirmatively. I asked if he knew the reason for their behavior, and he revealed that Bug believed he was cheating on them with me. This revelation shocked me, as Bug was aware of my asexuality and my lack of romantic interest in anyone for quite some time. Even in previous romantic interests, it took me years to develop feelings, and I had only known this guy for a month, at most. Bug had reportedly told him that if I ever developed feelings for him, they would drop me faster than I knew it was happening. Although they asked him not to share this with me, he felt I deserved to know. This news was both surprising and painful, especially considering our long-standing friendship, while they had only known this new guy for about 2 months. It hurt deeply that Bug did not take the time to inquire about the situation or check with either of us before jumping to conclusions, assuming that because we were friends, remember, they had encouraged me to befriend him. He must be cheating on them with me. This was disrespectful to both their boyfriend and me, as I would never consider acting in such a way, particularly towards my best friend. The very suggestion that I would do such a thing was infuriating. For a couple of weeks, Bug continued to ignore me, meanwhile accusing their boyfriend of cheating on them with me in nearly every conversation they had. Although I did not speak to him frequently, he and I had become friends beyond our connection to Bug. Frustrated by the ongoing drama and accusations, I informed both of them that if they could not resolve their issues and leave me out of it by the end of the week, I would block both of them and cease all communication. As weeks passed and little changed, the situation began to take a toll on my mental health. I struggled with sleep, was frequently anxious, and often felt nauseous. I grew increasingly fed up, so I decided to send each of them a message explaining why I could no longer maintain a friendship with them. I blocked them afterward, given my awareness that Bug would likely attempt to tarnish my reputation and blame me if I tried to discuss the matter with them. A couple of months have passed since then, and I am still upset about the situation because they were my best friend for several years. Am I the asshole for how I ended my friendship with Bug? Story 4. Feeling invisible. After years of superficial friendships, Itikem left yearning for genuine connection and adventures, but is it too late to find true companionship? I am here to express my frustrations. I, a 29-year-old male, have never had any genuine friends. I have always simply known people. Now, I have reached the realization that I do not have anyone at all. I believed that I had friends at various times in my life, but they never remained for one reason or another. They were only friends out of convenience, meaning that they would connect with me when they had no actual friends around and spent time with me to pass the time. Then, there were those who were only friends to obtain something from me before abruptly cutting off contact or exploding when I ceased to provide what they desired and abandoned me. Those friends who sought rides, money, or favors consumed my time and resources to such an extent that attempting to communicate that they were asking too much made them react negatively. Those friends who wanted everything from me, from a listening ear to a walking automatic teller machine, but who would not reciprocate in nearly the same manner. Those friends were among the most disappointing, but truly the worst of all were those who tried to befriend me because they felt sorry that I was all alone, as friendships born from pity often possess the least respect for the person being pitied. Honestly, I am exhausted by this. I am tired of feeling and being alone in crowded rooms. I am weary of lacking anyone who genuinely cares about me and actually wants my company. I am frustrated by the feeling that engaging in conversation with me is a burden for others. I am tired of caring more about others than they care about me. I am fatigued by this pervasive sense of loneliness. I have not formed any real social connections in years, and it is clearly beginning to affect me. I simply wish to have people with whom I can discuss random, everyday topics. Or even better, I want companions to engage in serious conversations about the universe, life, or whatever else over a bonfire, or in a random location in the middle of the desert on a clear, star-filled night. I desire friends who will not react strangely when I suggest going on an impromptu adventure to a museum that I find interesting or to a quirky attraction that I believe would be enjoyable. I appreciate gimmicks and museums and wish to have people around who will not think it is strange for me to enjoy them and want to experience them. I want someone to go fishing with who will not complain about boredom every 5 minutes or suggest we should simply go to a bar because it is the same thing. It is not the same thing, and I do not drink. I just want to be surrounded by people who show as much interest in me as I do in them without labeling my preferences or interests as weird, creepy, boring, or lame. I want to visit museums and attractions with others. I want to embark on spontaneous adventures to various places, perhaps go randonauting or urban exploring. There are countless places to discover. I want to go fishing with companions. I want to watch football and baseball with others, perhaps even attend a local game together. I want friends who will engage in basketball, badminton, or play Pokémon go with me. I want to go bowling, visit arcades, and enjoy miniature golf with others. I wish to play billiards with someone who will not consider it odd that I enjoy it. I want to drive around aimlessly while listening to true crime podcasts or creepypasta stories, specifically creepypasta, or just with friends who will share music with me without judging my musical taste as strange or outdated. I want to have lunch in my car at the Sonic stalls with someone. I cannot explain why. It just sounds enjoyable. Additionally, I want someone who is willing to explore new dining options with me. I want someone to converse with about anything and everything. I want to be able to discuss who the best Robin is or how Anissa is the worst character in Invincible, even worse than Immortal. I wish to share thoughts about random occult topics that I have read about or encountered online. I believe it could be quite entertaining to bring out a Ouija board or some tarot cards or similar items. I want someone who will share random fun facts with me, just as I enjoy sharing with them. I want to be tagged in random posts on social media, or to have someone acknowledge that we did something together, or, even better, to have friends who want to take pictures with me without telling me that I ruined the picture by smiling in an unusual way, or simply saying that they do not like taking pictures with me. I want to host a barbecue by the pool in the summer, perhaps throw a football around in the street, or perhaps have some random potluck where I will prepare some currywurst for people to try. I want friends to teach me some of the languages they speak, or perhaps want to learn one with me, or I could teach them some German. Honestly, as long as I had someone willing to share with me what I share with them, that would be sufficient. Reflecting on what I have already expressed, none of that would truly matter compared to simply knowing that I had a friend. However, writing all of this down and venting makes me feel pathetic. It makes me feel worse than when my family questions me about going out since I do not have friends and asks why I am out. That is painful in itself, but the feeling of desperation that this seems to convey feels worse than that. I do not know. I have come this far, but it seems like none of it even matters, and there is no purpose regardless. I am just that individual who lacks friends, and it is simply one of those realities that must be accepted, even though it is painful. It is what it is. It does not truly matter anyway, because if the remainder of this year unfolds as I anticipate, I will not be here by this time next year, so that makes it easier, I suppose. Therefore, why not vent and reflect for a while and see how I feel later? Perhaps circumstances will change and my perspective will shift. Moreover, contemplating everything leads me to believe that I might be better off alone anyway. But even then, it does not alleviate the pain of that solitude, so at least having some form of an outlet helps in its own way. It is preferable to nothing and to simply keeping all of this bottled up. Story 5. Torn between excitement and guilt. As I prepare for college, I struggle with leaving my mom behind and the tension that's built between us. How can I mend our relationship before I go? This is going to be lengthy, I cannot help it. I am literally crying as I type this. Summary. I am leaving for college soon, and while I am excited, I am struggling with the thought of leaving my mother behind. We have always been close since my father works overseas, but lately, I have been unintentionally distancing myself, becoming irritable, and saying things I regret. I thought that pulling away would make my departure easier, but it only hurts more. Witnessing how much my mother will miss me has made me realize that I do not want to leave on a negative note. I keep having vivid dreams about my departure, and the guilt of how I have treated her is overwhelming. I want to mend our relationship before I go, but I do not know how. I am moving away for college in a few months, and as excited as I am for this new chapter, I cannot stop thinking about how much I will miss my mother. She has been my greatest source of comfort my whole life, and since my father works overseas, we have always shared a strong bond. However, now that my departure is approaching, I feel a complicated mix of emotions that I do not know how to process. Recently, I have noticed myself drifting away a bit, not out of intent, but I think it is my way of trying to make the departure easier. Instead, it is just making me feel worse. I have been more irritable, and I dislike that I have raised my voice at times when I used to be calm. I always listened to her life stories, even if I had heard them countless times, and endured her rants, even when she yelled over minor issues. But now, I find myself speaking back to her, getting angry and saying hurtful things. When she shares her stories, I dismiss them as boring and tell her to be quiet. I do not understand why I am behaving this way. I still want to listen to her rants and chatter, but instead, I enter an angry state and have made many mistakes. I have not properly apologized, and that weighs heavily on me. It feels like I am watching myself behave this way, but cannot find a way to stop. I know this is all part of growing up, but the thought of leaving her behind, even temporarily, is incredibly difficult. I do not have many close friends, so my mother has always been the one person I could confide in. Over time, however, I began to keep things to myself, thinking I should not burden her with my issues. I used to be able to rest my head in her lap and cry when things were difficult, when I was bullied, or when I felt alone, but I have not done that in years. It saddens me because I feel as though I have lost that connection, and I do not want to leave things in this state. Now, when I likely need it the most, I feel like I cannot show her the vulnerable side of myself that I have long pretended to erase. The other day, something happened that deeply affected me. My mother was taking a nap, and before sleeping, she asked me to pick up some groceries. While she was resting, my little sister joked, "He has left for college," and my mother suddenly started crying in her sleep. She thought I had already gone. I was still at home, but seeing that broke me. I hurried to get the groceries, but I was tearing up the entire time. It made me realize just how challenging this is going to be for both of us. Ironically, the reason I was attempting to distance myself from her was to ensure that she would not grieve much, but now I feel that she will cry more after I leave, and our relationship ended on a sour note instead of being mended. I genuinely want to apologize immediately, but I feel stuck, and it is driving me crazy. At night, I keep having vivid dreams about the day I leave, and they feel so real. I have genetic hyperphantasia, which I inherited from my mother, that I wake up feeling shattered. Each time, it feels like I am reliving the moment before it even occurs. I know my mother must be experiencing those dreams too. It makes me feel so powerless because no matter what I do, that day is still approaching. I had planned to leave this January, but I postponed it to August because, in January, our arguments could have torn us apart. But now things are calming down, yet they are still not back to the way they were last year. I know I need to go, and I know my mother wants the best for me. She always encourages me, and I am so grateful for everything she has done raising me, taking care of me, making sure I do not feel alone. I do feel alone, but I pretend not to so I do not hurt her. I have had suicidal thoughts at times, but I hold back, hoping everything will eventually fall into place, irrespective of how indefinite the soon is. I want to spend these last few months showing her how much she means to me and creating good memories before I leave. I just want to do the right thing, but I feel so lost. I thought distancing myself would be helpful, but it only causes more pain. I do not know how to leave without hurting my mother. How do I say goodbye without breaking her heart? These thoughts are constantly swirling in my mind, and I am going mad. I still have a few months, but I do not know how I will manage. I want to mend things, but I am overwhelmed by my guilt. For those who have gone through something similar, how did you make the transition easier? How did you ensure your mother understood how much you appreciated her before you left? I do not want to take this time for granted, and I would love to hear any advice on how to make these last few months meaningful for both of us. I now realize that pushing my mother away will not make my departure any easier. If anything, it will only exacerbate the situation. I tried to make her love me less so she would not hurt when I left, but all I achieved was creating more pain for both of us. I do not want her to remember our last months together with regret. I just want to resolve things before it is too late. Lastly, just to clarify, this is about my relationship with my mother as a parent, nothing more. We are Asian. If I ever thought otherwise, she would personally set me straight with a slipper and more ultimate weapons. My father works overseas but is always present, calling daily, morning and night, supporting her even more than I do and listening to her rants and everything else. I love my mother because she has always been there for me, and I have supported her in return. She does not rely on me for happiness, I rely on her. I know I have to leave one day, but I just want to make things right before I go. Story 6. Lazy class partner didn't help at all with our term project, even while I was in the At the end of the semester, he acted as if he was entitled to get an A like I did. This occurred a few semesters ago when I was enrolled in a course on urban design. Everyone was divided into groups of 3, but one of my group members wanted to join another group with a friend, so I was left with just one other person. I am uncertain why the professor thought this arrangement was acceptable, but I was not overly concerned because I was quite confident in my ability to complete the work. The course integrated previous studio classes to connect them in a larger theme of urban planning, which encompassed architectural design, environmental sustainability, urban infrastructure, and historic preservation. I tried to brainstorm with my partner regarding the direction we should take. My idea focused on residential developments, as housing would meet a significant demand here in New York City. However, my partner appeared content to steer the project toward industrial buildings, so I shifted my focus accordingly. We generated various ideas, but I sensed that he preferred for me to take the lead, as he mostly concurred with my suggestions without contributing much input. Weeks passed, and I continually updated my partner on my progress through WhatsApp, while rarely receiving any updates or feedback from him. This minor annoyance did not deter my confidence in my work, which ultimately allowed us to progress through the next checkpoint during our upcoming presentation. At some point during the semester, I developed an extremely painful kidney stone. It was not due to junk food or a poor diet. Rather, it resulted from consuming an excessive amount of black beans and chickpeas. As a side note, I had asked ChatGPT to create a healthy dinner plan for me, which I used to formulate a meal plan that met my macronutrient needs. I did feel significantly better with my revised diet, but ultimately, it led to a kidney stone that landed me in the emergency room. I was prescribed various pain medications and had to remain there for several nights. Unfortunately, the situation escalated because the stone was so large that it became lodged. I required surgery to insert a stent. Do not look up the procedure, it still gives me nightmares. I had to endure several more weeks of passing deep red blood daily and undergo yet another surgery to remove the stent before I finally began to recover. Throughout this entire ordeal, I managed to make some progress on my project. I was astounded to discover that my partner had done absolutely nothing and was waiting for me to continue my work. What the actual heck? To make matters worse, I found out that he attempted to present my work as his own. How can people behave like that? I emailed the professor to explain my situation. I detailed how I had completed all the work up until that point and provided him with screenshots of the chat history, as well as my project file that included all the history logs. The professor reminded me that during the final submission, each individual was required to put their initials on the slides corresponding to the work they had contributed. Understood. Fortunately, I had recovered and was ready to present my work. I omitted the initials, as they were not required for the presentation, but only for the final submission. I felt a need to see how my partner would respond. I even attempted to give him a break by sharing some talking points regarding the sections I would allow him to claim as his own, even though it was entirely my work. He did not take advantage of that opportunity. He frequently interrupted me during the presentation to talk about my project, as if he had played any part in it. He mostly repeated the information I had presented without offering anything of value. The final presentation included several judges who were composed of local professionals in high-level positions within the industry. The conversation consistently directed attention toward me, leading me to believe that everyone recognized I had done the majority of the work, as I was the most knowledgeable about all the details. Then came the final submission day. The last slides included my initials on every single page. Evidently, my partner overlooked the section concerning the initials and submitted an older version of my work. A few weeks later, I contacted him to inquire about his grade. I was surprised to discover that he actually passed with a C. He was shocked to learn that I received an A and promptly stated that he would speak with the professor about why he had received such a low grade. Honestly, why do such people exist? Regardless, I am not sure if this qualifies as malicious compliance, but I followed all the instructions and ended up having quite an extraordinary semester. Did I mention that I experienced morphine for the first time during my emergency room visit?